Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Greetings. Greetings and salutations. Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Hey Madhu, hello, Hare Krishna. Govinda. You have to be careful of everyone said. Well, everyone said. Can everyone be wrong? Yes. Everyone said. Like, there's a grapefruit tree here. It's a really nice grapefruit tree. Last year was the first year that it really outdid itself with grapefruit. I mean, that tree. So around January, February, there were some freeze warnings. And everyone said, you got to take the fruit off the tree. It's going to freeze. You're going to lose all the fruit. You have to... So, I mean, everyone said. So I was out there with the ladder. It took all day. Up the ladder, down the ladder, up the ladder, down the ladder, getting all these grapefruit because we didn't want to lose them. So they were all like partially ripe. They weren't really like sweet pink grapefruit. They were like a little puckery and bitter. But they didn't freeze. And I had a whole room full of them. And evidently citrus doesn't ripen after you pick it. Like some fruits, like a banana. If you pick it green and let it sit, it'll ripen. Well, citrus doesn't really do that. So they just stayed there, like partially ripe and a little on the bitter and puckery side. A whole room full of them. But they didn't freeze because everyone said. So there were a couple, maybe 5 or 10 of them that I couldn't reach. They were so high up in the tree, there was no way to get them. So I just left them and I thought, okay, so they'll just freeze. Well, they've been up there on the tree for over a year because the little grapefruits, the new ones, start to form in like February and March. The tree blooms and the little baby fruits start to form. So if I picked those in February, they had been on that tree for a year, and the ones that are up there now, they've been there almost a year and a half. Or a year and like, 2 or 3 months. So one of them finally fell off the tree because I've been dying of curiosity what condition they're in. And that was the nicest grapefruit. Oh my. It was sweet as sugar, plump. It had been on that tree because now there's little baby ones forming for next year's harvest. And so it finally fell off. So everyone said, you have to take... Watch out for everyone's said. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Like, I was a young adult during the Vietnam and hippie thing. And everyone was saying then, the world's coming to an end. It's the most terrible time. And it's a disaster, and there was so much fear and anxiety everywhere during the Vietnam protest times. And it was great for, Prabhupada walked right into the middle of that and said, we can stop this, take this Krishna consciousness, and we can stop this. And it was like perfect timing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I remember it well. It was like you didn't want to live because there was no hope. And everything was so disorganized and disturbing, and so many horrible things were happening all around you. And it's like, you didn't want to live. You got like this kind of... It wasn't just one person. It was like a social depression, social misery. So it's the undercurrent is there You know, there's the conspiracy stuff, you know. In the world at large, there's these higher powers, and they're doing terrible things, and they want to take over the world, and all this kind of stuff. And you know, they're going to put things in your body that will allow them to control you remotely, and who knows, maybe it's true, I don't know. Maybe it's true, I don't know. Hare Krishna. There's so much misinformation on both sides, you know, the goody propaganda, and then the propaganda. Who knows, you know. It's the age of misinformation on both sides. Hare Krishna. So, chant Hare Krishna, we can stop this. Hasn't changed. And I'm noticing more and more devotees are kind of getting sucked into this fear. It's kind of like it's like pornography, but not sexual pornography. It's like fear pornography. Like, chant Hare Krishna. We can stop this. We can stop this. Chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hello, Mr. Bijay. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So there's kind of like this undercurrent, and I'm noticing it more and more in classes, formal classes, like some of these Zoom presentations, and then also meeting in people's homes. This is a big topic of discussion. The conspiracy mood, you know, very fearful, and there's a conspiracy. And then also the conspiracy, the ISKCON conspiracy, it's kind of a mood that is kind of pervading everything, all this fearfulness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Well, it's not that it isn't true. It's Kali Yuga, and in the Kali Yuga, eventually, I mean, this is like hundreds of thousands of years of degeneration. It's described in our scripture. People will be like 2 feet tall. A ripe old age will be 25 years. There won't be any vegetation on the planet at all, and people, so-called people, will be cannibals. So that's coming. I guess they ran out of cows, because cows need grass, right? So then they just start eating each other. You have to have something to eat, right? So that's coming. It's coming. It's Kali Yuga. It's a dreadful age. Terrible, terrible, terrible age. But we're situated right now in this time, right after the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who ushers in a reprieve. And it lasts for several thousand years, it's somewhere around 10,000 years, where the chanting of the holy name backs off this Kali Yuga. It's described like an Indian summer, or, you know, sometimes when the harvest is through, the summer is over, and the winter is starting to come in. There's a little space in there. It was very beautiful and very pleasant. It's called Indian summer. I think Native American summer, not Indian. Native American, woo summer, not this summer. Indian summer. Yeah, so we're right on the beginning of that Indian summer. So it really is this kind of Indian summer, even though they've named it after the other, Indian. That is pretty funny how Krishna does things like that. So the Indian summer, Chaitanya's 10,000 years of golden age. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. We'll back off. It backs off. And that's right where we're at. What a great spot to be in. You get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and a time period where it's not too horrible. Hare Krishna, Hare. But we can see the beginnings of it, the seeds of it. It's happening very quickly. I was thinking about Kṛṣṇa and how when Kṛṣṇa, in his form as Kṛṣṇa, Radha Krishna, Hare Krishna, appeared as Kṛṣṇa, there was a similar problem with, it was actually the beginning of the age. His appearance actually was the turning point, because the rulers at the time were malevolent. They were demonic. They didn't have the qualifications to be in charge of everything. They're unwholesome characters, and causing a problem for everyone. So Kṛṣṇa explains, when this happens, and it happens periodically in this world, then he appears, usually in a Vishnu form. This time he appeared in a pastime form, Krishna form. And he reestablishes religious principles and sets things back on track. So what he did then, if we look at the history, is he let the situation build and build and build, the tension build and build and build in the royal ruling class. And when everyone finally assembled in one place, he just wiped the slate clean in the Kṛṣṇa. So there's a kind of building now, a kind of polarization taking place. Who's a good guy? Who's a bad guy? Who's on the side of wanting to please God, and who's on the side of who's God? What God? What are you talking about? There is no God on that side. Any kind of polarizing. And that building is going on. It's the tension and the polarizing. And Srila Prabhupada, he mentioned something about after the big clash, or the big, where everything gets kind of like wiped clean, he explained that Krishna consciousness will take hold very nicely. So yeah, it's coming. It's unavoidable. Creation, maintenance, dissolution, creation, maintenance, and dissolution, that's always there. So we're on the slide side, the dissolution side. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Quite a time to be living in. Thankfully, we have knowledge and information about what's really going on. And also, the Bhagavatam was around 5,000 years ago, was given by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, one of the last qualified kings. He was the grandson of Arjuna, I believe. Is he the grandson of Arjuna? And he was almost destroyed before he was born by one of the bad guys, Ashwatthama. While he was still within the womb, he was almost aborted by Ashwatthama to try and annihilate the righteous ruling class. But it failed. Krishna stepped in. So the Bhagavatam, the sages were assembled. They saw the age of Kali coming, and they know from the scripture, we know what the age of Kali is like, and they can understand, this is the turning point after Kṛṣṇa, because there were no rulers left, no qualified ruling class left. So they gathered at Kṛṣṇa, the great sages, to discuss what is the path? Where will religious principles be found? Where will the truth be accessed in this age that's coming? How will the living entities get light in the darkness that's coming? Where will they get the light? In walks Sukadeva Goswami, who had just heard Bhagavatam. While he was in the womb of his mother, he heard the Bhagavatam because his father Vyasadeva composed Bhagavatam. And as soon as he was born, he grew up immediately and took off, wandering around in ecstatic trance. It's pretty far out stuff, but Hare Krishna. Things aren't what they appear to seem. They seem to appear as we look around us, and everything looks very recognizable and understandable. Yeah, well, it's not. It's all illusory, but because it's temporary. But so Sukadeva, filled with this Bhagavatam, having heard from his father, wandered into the assembly of the sages as they were gathered there with Parikshit Maharaj, who wanted to know what he should do at the time of death. That was the first time it was spoken. Let me get this straight, because it was spoken twice. The first time was Sukadeva Goswami wandered into the assembly where Parikshit Maharaj, the last of the righteous ruling class, was about to die, having been cursed by a Brahmin boy. I mean, this is just too far out, you know. Things were just deteriorating so quickly. To be cursed by the Brahminical class. Anyway, he accepted the curse, and he knew he was going to die within a few days. So he wanted to know, what does a person do when they're about to die? What is their duty? And the sages were all gathered, and who knows who had this, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And in walks Sukadeva Goswami, completely naked, bluish color, long flowing black hair, glowing effulgence. And I believe he was being followed by some ruffians or animalistic type people who thought, you know, that he was just crazy. And they were following him and making fun of him and throwing things at him and laughing and having a great time. And he was totally oblivious. Completely absorbed in ecstasy, and he wandered into the assembly. And when the great sages all saw him, they could understand, oh, the Supreme Lord, his representative, is here. And they gave him the Vyasasana to speak the Bhagavatam to Parikshit. So that was when the last of the righteous rulers was about to die. There would be no more really qualified rulers after that for the planet. So that's where the Bhagavatam was spoken. And in that assembly, I believe Sutta Goswami, who was he the son of? He was the son of Ramaharshan. Later, in a place called Namasharanya, the sages gathered again, and they wanted to know, where will religious principles be found? What is going to happen? How can the people in this age get light? How can they be saved, really, from what's coming? Where will their protection be? Where is the path? Where will it be found? There are no leaders. Society will be a society of cats and dogs. So at that assembly, Ramaharshan was presiding, and Lord Balaram himself entered. Lord Balaram himself. He was wandering on pilgrimage. He didn't take part in Kurukshetra. He didn't take part. Kṛṣṇa was there on the chariot with Arjuna, but Balaram said, no, I'm not taking part in this, and he was on pilgrimage. I believe that's how it fits together. Anyway, Balaram appeared in the assembly, and everyone recognized Balaram. The personality of Godhead himself had arrived in the form of Balaram. Except for Ramaharshan, who was sitting on the Vyasasana and didn't want to acknowledge, because he was proud of being seated as the presiding personality of the assembly. He didn't want to bow down to a greater personality. He was attached to his post, his position. Balaram saw that and understood he's not qualified. He picked up a little piece of kusha grass. I don't know if it was little or not, but kusha, it's what they weave the mats that yogis sit on when they meditate. They weave these kusha blades of grass into these mats. He took one of those blades and he killed him with it. Boom! That was it. So now the sages are all assembled. Supreme Personality of Godhead has liberated Ramaharshan Sutta, but what do? We need... So Sutta Goswami, who had been in the assembly where Shukadev Goswami had spoken Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, Sutta Goswami was the son of Ramaharshan Sutta, and Balaram placed him as the presiding personality for the assembly because he had heard the Bhagavatam. And so that is what we have, this Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is what was spoken to Parikshit Maharaj, the last of the righteous rulers on the planet, and then re-spoken by Sutta Goswami to the sages at Naimisharanya who wanted to know, where will people find light? Where will they find shelter? Where is religion in this age of Kali? It's just like Kṛṣṇa does so many things all at once. So on a personal level, what is the duty of someone who is about to die? Is to hear about Kṛṣṇa. You've got Bhagavatam. And where is the light and shelter for society at large, for people in general? Where is religious principles? You've got Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's on a very personal level. Actually, no one knows when they're going to die. I mean, it could be today, you know. So you have to do the Maharaj Parikshit thing and hear Bhagavatam. You don't know. You don't know when it's going to come. You don't have to be an old person or a sick person. There's all kinds of things that happen in this world. All kinds of things. Oh my goodness. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I was just watching some documentaries to try and get some perspective on the types of things that happen in this world. And it's a documentary that covers a lot of disasters. Things that happened that no one knew was going to happen and ended up like killing a lot of people. So one of them was a disaster that took place in Canada near the city of Halifax in the 1919. So it was about 100 years ago. Two freighters collided. They had both made mistakes in trying to maneuver through the harbor there. They both made mistakes, miscalculations. And one of the freighters was carrying coal, and the other was carrying explosives, because this was during World War II, and they were transporting explosives to make bombs to fight the war. And they collided in the harbor. And it's said to be one of the biggest explosions to ever take place in the North American continent. it was like an atomic bomb. It destroyed everything instantly, and it was felt for up to like a mile. The explosion was up to a mile. So those people, they were just going through their normal everyday life. Somebody was in a store selling bananas. Somebody was on the telephone talking to their friend. They were just, the whole city of Halifax was destroyed. Out of the blue. Nobody knew. No one knew. There was an accident in the harbor. Actually, it said the people, they saw the boats collide and they saw some smoke. And so they were looking out their windows to see what it was. And when the explosion hit, they were filled with all the glass from the windows. Horrible stuff in this material world. Absolutely horrible stuff. Oh, man, what a place. It's danger at every step. And in Kali Yuga, it's even worse. Oh, it's like landmines everywhere. Oh, Kṛṣṇa, what a time. So we have the Bhagavatam. And that's how we got it. And Srila Prabhupada's order from his spiritual master, which he has filled so nicely, was to print these things, get these out, especially in English, because it's the most influential country in the world in many different ways. It's the biggest one, has the biggest military, it's got its paws into everything. Get it out in English especially. And now it's translated also in I don't know how many languages. But it's the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. Wow. Super wow. Overwhelming wow. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Don't ask me how I stumbled into this. Somebody left the door open and I wandered in. Whoa! So, let's read a little bit from the Bhagavatam. How's that? Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. And this is Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this is a summary study of the 10th canto. There are 12 cantos. The 10th canto deals exclusively with the appearance and pastimes and activities of the personality of Godhead. Hare Kṛṣṇa. And we just happen to be in the chapter where Kṛṣṇa has sent, Kṛṣṇa is now living in, where is he living? Is he living in Dwarka or Mathura? Anyway, he's not in Vrindavan. I think he's still in Mathura. He hasn't erected the fort yet at Dwarka. I think he's still in Mathura, sort of straightening things out there, I think. What do I know? Anyway, he's not in Vrindavan. He's in one of the municipalities, the cities, where life is different than the village life. And he's in the royal family. He's taking up his duties of management in the royal family. But he's thinking of his wonderful friends, and he had so much fun in his childhood in the village. It was just one big party growing up in the village. And the village people are missing Kṛṣṇa so much because they were having so much fun with Kṛṣṇa. So he's sending Uddhava to Vrindavan to give them a message. He hasn't forgotten them. No way. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So, let's see. Uddhava is about to read the message He spent time with Krishna's foster father and mother, and now he's sitting quietly in a rather secluded place with the girls who were playing with Krishna and loving Krishna so much. And now he's about to give them the message. Uddhava continued, these are the words from the personality of Godhead. My dear Gopis, my dear friends, please know my composure here. It's a little emotional. It's supposed to be. Hare Krishna. My dear friends, please know that separation between ourselves is impossible at any time, at any place, or under any circumstances. Because I am all-pervading. Thus, this all-pervasiveness of Krishna is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, both in the 9th and 7th chapters. Krishna is all-pervasive in his impersonal feature. Everything is resting in him, but he is not personally present everywhere. In the 7th chapter also it is stated that the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego, are all his inferior energies. But there is another superior energy, which is called the living entity. The living entities are also directly part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is the source of both the material and spiritual energies. Aham sarvasya prabhava matak sarvam prabhartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava sumanvita. I think that's the only verse I've actually memorized. He is always intermingled with everything as cause and effect. Not only the Gopis, but all living entities are always inseparably connected with Krishna in all circumstances. The Gopis, however, are perfectly and thoroughly in cooperation in their relationship with Krishna, whereas the living entities under the spell of Maya are forgetful of Krishna. They think themselves as separate identities having no connection with Krishna. This is all Prabhupada's purport here from that one sentence, where Krishna says, my dear Gopis, my dear friends, please know that separation between ourselves is impossible at any time, at any place, or under any circumstances, because I'm all-pervading. So Prabhupada's purport continues, love of Krishna, or Krishna consciousness, is therefore the perfectional stage of real knowledge in understanding things as they are. Our minds can never be vacant. The mind is constantly occupied with some kind of thought, and the subject matter of such thought cannot be outside the 8 elements of Krishna's energy. One who knows this philosophical aspect of all thoughts is actually a wise man, and he surrenders unto Krishna. The Gopis are the typical example of this perfectional stage of knowledge. They are not simple mental speculators. Their minds are always in Krishna. The mind is nothing but the energy of Krishna. Actually, any person who can think, feel, act, and will cannot be separated from Krishna. But the stage in which he can understand his eternal relationship is called Krishna consciousness. The diseased condition in which he cannot understand his eternal relationship with Krishna is the contaminated stage, or Maya. Since the Gopis are on the platform of pure, transcendental knowledge, their minds are always filled with Krishna consciousness. For example, as there is no separation between fire and air, so there is no separation between Krishna and the living entities. When the living entities forget Kṛṣṇa, they are not in their normal condition. As for the Gopīs, because they are always thinking of Kṛṣṇa, they are on the absolute stage of perfection in knowledge. The so-called empiric philosophers sometimes think that the path of bhakti is meant for the less intelligent. But unless the so-called man of knowledge comes to the platform of bhakti, his knowledge is certainly impure and imperfect. Actually, the stage of perfecting one's eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa is love in separation. But that is also illusory because there's no separation. The Gopīs were never separated from Kṛṣṇa, even from the philosophical point of view. There was no separation. The cosmic manifestation is also not separate from Kṛṣṇa. Nothing is separate from me. The whole cosmic manifestation is resting on me and is not separate from me. Before the creation, I was existing. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Before creation, there was only Narayan. There was no Brahma, no Shiva as assistants. The whole cosmic manifestation is manipulated by the three modes of material nature. Brahma is the incarnation of the quality of passion. It is said that Brahma created this universe, but Brahma is the secondary creator. The original creator is Narayan. This is also confirmed by Shankaracharya. Narayana Paravyakta. Narayan is transcendental beyond this cosmic creation. Kṛṣṇa creates, maintains, and annihilates the whole cosmic manifestation by expanding himself in different incarnations. Everything is Kṛṣṇa, and everything is depending on Kṛṣṇa, but he is not perceived in the material energy. Material energy is called Maya, or illusion. In the spiritual energy, however, Kṛṣṇa is perceived at every step, in all circumstances. This perfectional stage of understanding is present in the Gopīs. As Kṛṣṇa is always aloof from the cosmic manifestation, although it is completely dependent on him, so a living entity is also completely aloof from the material conditional life. The material body has developed on the basis of spiritual existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, the whole cosmic manifestation is accepted as the mother of the living entities, and Kṛṣṇa is the father. As the father impregnates the mother by injecting the living entity within the womb, so all the living entities are injected by Kṛṣṇa in the womb of material nature. They come out in different bodies according to their different fruitive activities. In all circumstances, the living entity is aloof from this material conditional life. Prabhupada didn't know if he would be able to get to the 10th canto, which is a very important canto, obviously. And so he put everything in the 10th canto. So we're having also understanding the philosophical aspects of Kṛṣṇa. Because Prabhupada, he was an old body, he didn't know if he would get to the 10th canto. There's 12 cantos. He had to do nine of them first. And he never did get to the 11th and 12th canto. But, so he put everything in this. Bhagavad Gita is in here. Everything's in this 10th canto, in his summary study of the 10th canto. So Prabhupada is giving us more Bhagavad Gita substance to understand this Kṛṣṇa that the Gopīs are so attached to. And Prabhupada continues, if we simply study our own bodies, we can understand how a living entity is always aloof from this bodily encagement. Every action of the body is taking place by the interaction of the three modes of material nature. We can see at every moment many changes taking place in bodies, but the spirit soul is aloof from all changes. One can neither create nor annihilate nor interfere with the actions of material nature. The living entity is therefore entrapped by the material body and is conditioned in three stages, namely, while awake, asleep, and unconscious. The mind is acting through all the three conditions of life. The living entity in his sleeping or dreaming condition sees something as real, and in his awake condition he sees the same thing as unreal. It is concluded, therefore, that under certain circumstances he accepts something as real, and under other circumstances he accepts the very same thing as unreal. These matters are the subject matter of study for the empiric philosopher or the Sankhya Yoga. In order to come to the right conclusion, Sankhya yogis undergo severe austerities and penances. They practice control of the senses and renunciation. So there it is. You understand what Sankhya Yoga is. It's the study of what's real and unreal. And the way they do it is by practicing austerities and penances to distinguish. I consider this real, but then later on I consider it unreal to understand how that works, the Sankhya Yoga. All these different ways of determining the ultimate goal of life are compared to rivers. Kṛṣṇa is the ocean. As the rivers flow down toward the ocean, all attempts for knowledge flow toward Kṛṣṇa. After many, many births of endeavor, when one actually comes to Kṛṣṇa, he attains the perfectional stage. Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad Gita, all are pursuing the path of realizing me, but those who have adopted courses without any bhakti find their endeavor very troublesome. Klesho dikaratas tesham. Kṛṣṇa cannot be understood unless one comes to the point of bhakti. Three paths are enunciated in the Gita: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those who are too addicted to fruitive activities are advised to perform actions which will bring them to bhakti. Those who are addicted to the frustration of empiric philosophy are also advised to realize bhakti. Karma Yoga is different from ordinary karma, and Jnana Yoga is different from jnana. Ultimately, as stated by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Only through execution of devotional service can one understand Kṛṣṇa. The perfectional stage of devotional service was achieved by the Gopīs because they did not care to know anything but Kṛṣṇa. It is confirmed in the Vedas, Yasmin eva vignate sarvam eva vignatam bhavanti. This means that simply by knowing Kṛṣṇa, all other knowledge is automatically acquired. So this relationship of the Gopīs and Kṛṣṇa is misunderstood quite a bit by mundane understanding of, oh, a boy and a girl, yeah, we know what that is. So Prabhupada is helping us Kali Yuga-ites to gain some insight into what the difference between spirit and matter and the actual nature of Kṛṣṇa and the nature of the relationship of these female entities with Kṛṣṇa, and to get it off that kind of, yeah, we know, yeah, boy and a girl, right, yeah, get it off of that into transcendence. So he's giving us what we need to help us get on that higher platform. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa continued. Transcendental knowledge of the Absolute is no longer necessary for you. You are accustomed to love me, and from the very beginning of your lives. And Prabhupada continues. Knowledge of the Absolute is specifically required for persons who want liberation from material existence. But one who has attained love for Kṛṣṇa is already on the platform of liberation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone engaged in unalloyed devotional service is to be considered situated on the transcendental platform of liberation. The Gopīs were not actually feeling any pangs of material existence, but they were feeling the separation of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa therefore said, My dear Gopīs, in order to increase your super excellent love for me, I have purposely separated myself from you. I have done this so that you may be in constant meditation on me. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. The Gopīs are in the perfectional stage of meditation. The yogis are generally more fond of meditation than the execution of devotional service to the Lord. But they do not know that the perfectional stage of devotion is the attainment of the perfection of the yoga system. This constant meditation on Kṛṣṇa by the Gopīs is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita to be the topmost yoga. Kṛṣṇa knew very well the psychology of women. When a woman's beloved is away, she thinks of him meditatively, and he is present before her. Kṛṣṇa wanted to teach through the behavior of the Gopīs. One who is constantly entranced like the Gopīs surely attains the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. It's an interesting paragraph there that the Gopīs are already in the perfectional stage of meditation. Yogis, they're more fond of meditation than actually Kṛṣṇa. And the Gopīs, just by being having all of their love in connection with Kṛṣṇa, personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, they're already perfected meditation. That's how powerful the bhakti is. Lord Chaitanya taught people in general the method of vipralambha, which is the method of rendering service unto the personality of Godhead in the feeling of separation. And remembering, I was just reading a little earlier about the Gopīs and how they were going through their daily activities. And like, it's a village, cowherd village, so, they're tending cows, they're making butter and curd, they're they're sweeping the floor, they're doing water, carrying water, they're doing what they do in villages. And the description of them was when the Gopīs were churning butter, and they were doing the churn. It's such a beautiful description. The bangles on they're thinking of Kṛṣṇa, they're singing Kṛṣṇa, and the bangles on their wrists are moving, and their hair and the flowers and their garland, and their breasts are moving, and they're churning the butter, and they're thinking of Kṛṣṇa. It's such a beautiful description. That devotional service in meditation on Kṛṣṇa. Not just like sitting somewhere in meditation, but actually doing things, sweeping the floor. The queens in Dwarka, they're sweeping the floor, even though there's nothing on the floor to sweep, and they're thinking of Kṛṣṇa. And they, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Devotional service, not fruit of activity, but devotional activity, devotional. Vipralamba. The 6 Goswamis also taught worship of Kṛṣṇa in the feeling of the Gopis in separation. The prayers of Srinivasacharya about the Goswamis explain these matters very clearly. Srinivasacharya said that the Gopis were always absorbed in the ocean of transcendental feelings in the mood of the Gopis. When they lived in Vrindavan, they were searching for Kṛṣṇa, crying, "Where is Kṛṣṇa? Where are the Gopis? Where are you, Srimati Radharani?" They never said, "We have now seen Radha and Kṛṣṇa, and therefore our mission is fulfilled." Their mission remained always unfulfilled. They never met Radha and Kṛṣṇa. At the time of the Rasa dance, those Gopis who could not join the Rasa Leela with Kṛṣṇa gave up their bodies simply by thinking of him. Absorption in Krishna consciousness by feeling separation is thus the quickest method for attaining the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. In the spiritual sky, Kṛṣṇa never leaves. Vrindavan is always there. When these pastimes are enacted here, it can be a little confusing because he went from Vrindavan to Mathura and then he went. It can be a little confusing. Hare Krishna. Spam calls all day long. Buy this, buy that, donate to this, donate to that. Hare Krishna. By the personal statement of Kṛṣṇa, the Gopis were convinced about the strength of feelings of separation. They're actually experiencing the supernatural method of Kṛṣṇa worship and were much relieved and happy to understand it. They were relieved and happy to understand it. Relieved and happy to understand this Vipralamba mood of separation. Relieved and happy. They began to speak as follows. This is the Gopis. We have heard that King Kamsa, who was always a source of trouble for the Yadu dynasty, has now been killed. This is good news for us. We hope, therefore, that the members of the Yadu dynasty are very happy in the association of Kṛṣṇa, who can fulfill all the desires of his devotees. My dear Uddhava, kindly let us know whether Kṛṣṇa sometimes thinks of us while in the midst of highly enlightened society girls in Mathura. We know that the women and girls in Mathura are not village women. They're highly enlightened and beautiful. Their bashful, smiling glances and other feminine features must be very pleasing to Kṛṣṇa. We know very well that Kṛṣṇa is always fond of the behavior of beautiful women. It seems, therefore, that he has been entrapped by the women of Mathura. My dear Uddhava, will you kindly let us know if Kṛṣṇa sometimes remembers us while he is in the midst of other women? Hare Krishna. I'm going to let it go here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the midst of Kali Yuga, we have access to the truth. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And we're on the very beginning of the golden age of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before the full onslaught and nightmare of Kali Yuga takes on its full force. So we're in a great spot, really great spot. Yeah. Very fortunate. Hare Krishna. So wherever possible, we want to try to make others fortunate wherever possible. The great mission of the Acharyas, Prabhupada's great mission, is to make everyone fortunate in this Kali Yuga. Kṛṣṇa to be a household word. in the golden age of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Give us relief before the really bad stuff comes in. So what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He says, wherever you go, whoever you meet, simply tell them about Kṛṣṇa or Krishna's instruction. And to do it nicely, in a loving way, friendly way, to give them Kṛṣṇa somehow. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. You really see it here in this area, that just by there being such a large community of devotees, people who are chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa in one way or another, trying to live their life in Krishna consciousness, the people in general, like the ones that work in the store and work in the government, in the police, and the dentist, all the other people that live here, I mean, they're seeing devotees all day, every day. And to me, I look at them and I see them transforming. It's like, wow. Hare Kṛṣṇa. There's a little girl at the supermarket, and she saw my neck beads. She's so beautiful. She has such good karma. She's an adorable young girl. She's really beautiful at the checkout counter. And she said, I used to have beads and they broke. Now, I don't know if she's talking about Tulsi beads or if she just had, it's a style also. People wear the fashionable. But she was attracted to the neck beads. So I have to get her some neck beads and tell her a little bit about Tulsi. Because she sees devotees all day with neck beads. And I want to give her a little prasad and maybe a cookie or some fudge or something. I don't want to give her any big philosophy. Just let her get a little taste, and have some little, the Hare Krishna neck beads. and a little cookie, to go with it, I mean, it's just incredible how spontaneous everything is here. And at the doctor's office, the radiologist, just an annual checkup thing, she says she loves sweet rice, looking at me like, do you have any sweet rice? Maybe you've got it in your pocketbook or something. So I have to get her some sweet rice. It's just very naturally, wherever you go, whoever you meet, And if they can recognize you as a devotee somehow, like I've been wearing the tilak, and that really helps. Very few negative responses. Very few. Some kind of mistrustful looks, but mostly people are they're just interested. What is that? And it's an opener. And I don't have a bead bag. I wear the beads around my neck. So they see the beads, and conversations open up. I'm not wearing traditional dress because I'm not serving in the temple. I'm out in the garden, I mean, try riding a lawnmower in a sari. I mean, let's be practical about this. So, it's just wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Kṛṣṇa, Krishna's instructions. And in that way, we can be absorbed in Kṛṣṇa. We don't have to put on a false show just to kind of interact with them. We can be who we are and let them find out who that is. So we're in a great spot in this kala. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Govinda Hare.